a bit while we chat. And I just want to say how excited I am tonight to chat with our guest, Sensei Glen Archambault. And Sensei, we always jump in with a question before we get to a more formal introduction. And, as I was looking at your stuff, something popped out at me about doing Hakko Denshin Ryu, and it's that you realized its effectiveness in law enforcement. And there's something that we always talk about on this show, and I'm always so excited to dig in very deeply. We do these martial arts in dojos and we wear our angry pajamas, etc. But you found very early on that this was truly effective in situations that demanded an ability to deal with restraint, with people who might be coming at you. So talk about your realization that, these classical arts live outside these classical rooms, and break that open as much as you like. I'm really interested.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was kind of for me, like when I was in high school, I took Shotokan karate, and my instructor, Steve Lonsdale, he was a correctional officer when I was in high school. And then when I graduated college, I ended up going to work at the same correctional center that he worked at. And in my time off, while I was away at college and at the end of high school, he had started training in Hakko JuJutsu, gone to Japan, got his black belt, all this stuff. And so he encouraged me to start coming out, and that's when I was introduced to Soke LaMonica. And the thing that really intrigued me the most about, in particular, this style, the traditional Japanese style of Hakko Denshin Jujutsu, was how well it worked for controlling individuals using pain compliance in a way that really didn't require any strength or any effort. And in my job as a correctional officer, we had to restrain inmates all the time when they were becoming rebellious or breaking up fights and things like that. And you break up a fight and then they become competitive towards you. So it was really, really important for me to be able to learn that stuff. And like very early on as a white belt, just learning, I was able to start to apply that stuff in my work and see how well it worked. So I had this kind of, it didn't matter to me as I went through and progressed. I wasn't looking necessarily for belt progressions. I was looking for, this situation at work works for me. I had this situation, I had this situation. So I'm looking at it through that kind of a lens.
Right.
And I was able to apply it on a bunch of different occasions. And so then it was just easy for me to maintain interest that way. It was like I was, the value was, you could see it. It was very, very tangible in that regard, right? Because a lot of us, we take this, you go and you take martial arts and you do whatever, and the whole idea behind it is that hopefully you never have to use it. It gives you that confidence, and you can project that confidence, and that you can protect yourself, so you never have to use it. But there's something to be said for being in a situation where you have to use it and it works effectively, right?
So let me ask you, and this is something that does come up on our shows. So for some of our listeners, it might sound a little repetitive, but BJJ is all the rage right now.
Yeah.
And you're talking about traditional martial arts. You're talking about traditional jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And the thing that people like about the BJJ so much is the pressure testing is inherent in every single class. But you're pressure testing things that have to be real world applied. And in your case, as a white belt. So what was the leap for you from, let's say, 2-person drills where you can't actually be hitting that level of pain compliance? Maybe you can tell us, maybe those drills were a little harsher than I think. But you understand what I'm asking is,
Yeah.
how was that transition to real world? And was it literally the move from class worked? Or did you have to go back to class and go, hey, we're close here, people, but we need to maybe address a little more of the reality?
Well, I guess just to kind of break it down a little bit. So, and I know a lot of martial arts will do similar things. So I'll just use the language that I'm familiar with. But when we do our basic WAs, our basic techniques, they just start when you're kneeling cooperative with a partner, kind of getting that, the basics of the techniques to feel for it. Very cooperative process, right? They're like, from your very first time that you're doing it, there is a level of pain compliance and learning how to apply those risk controls to people from class number one. And obviously, The longer you do it, the more refined they get, the better you are at them. But after 6 months of training, really, there's enough, at least in the application that we're at, in a correctional center, even as a police officer trying to control somebody, that's enough for most people. That's enough. Like, and keep in mind too, generally speaking, you're usually not the only officer that's involved in these incidents either. So when
Right.
you're trying to control somebody, someone might be on an ankle, somebody might be on a leg, but when you're on an
Yeah.
arm, I can put that control on, and all of a sudden it's done.
Yep.
They're like tapping out right away, whereas other people are like cranking techniques on, using strength, not applying the right angles, and they're not getting the same level of compliance. That's where it cued for me.
Well, I really appreciate that. And before we go to Sensei Dolph, who I know wants to build on this, I was telling Sensei Dolph the other day, I had a playful exchange with my cousin, who's a fit middle-aged guy, stronger than I am, and he wanted to wrestle. And I've got a fair amount of BJJ experience, and it was just the pathways. What he thought were the right pathways were the ones that gave me the very thing I was trying to get in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I like what you're saying about even that 6 months of knowledge. You're going this direction, not this way, compared to the person who doesn't know what they're doing. And someone flailing is giving you that arm. And if you know what that lock is, you know what that lock is. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, basically, and then all you're doing is over time just refining it, and maybe finding
Right.
different ways to get in there. And then when the arm is in a certain position when you're first training, it's like you don't know how to get it, maybe from extended out to behind their back smoothly and maintain control and things like that. So those
Yep.
are the things that you start to build on that really help keep the techniques effective, transitioning and things like that. Different transitions are always helpful. But yeah, really, really early on, seeing that value in my employment and the type of job and career that I had was the thing that made it a light bulb for me. And this is the thing that I'm going to do forever. So
What a
yeah.
gift. Sensei Dauphin, where do you want to go with this before we go around the horn on a thought I have?
Okay, well, I do have a question, but I wanted to just say something about it's a question about in karate, we have waza, and in Iaido we have waza as well. And I'm sure in your style of jiu-jitsu, Hakko, Denshin, Ryu, there's the waza you're talking about. That's a baseline technique, but when you start applying it, there's obviously going to be variations. Like that's kind of like your home base, right? Like this is where we train, this is everything we do. But then if you get a little runt like me with a big person like you're going to have to change the angles and do things
Yep.
just a little bit different, right? So basics are basics, and then how you apply them are slightly different, I think.
No, 100%. And like on our basic Waza, it's always with a partner, and it's cooperative. And how I describe it to students is like you're literally it's like muscle memory. When you go to do the technique, you're just practicing so that when you put your hands in the right way, or when you go to establish a grip, you don't have to think about it anymore. So now when you translate that into a situation or into Henka, the variations that we do, now you know when somebody reaches towards you or they grab a lapel or they grab in a different way. I know that if I get three fingers on the meat of the thumb, I know what that grip is, and I know exactly without thinking about it what direction I can go. And I never stuck in that spot where it's like, oh, I've got an arm now, and I'm processing, going, oh, do I go left? Do I go right? Where no, it's like it's as soon as you get a grip, I know exactly where it needs to go. Because in those situations on a street, you can't replicate even in a dojo, even practicing. It's like you just don't know where your hands are going to go. You think you're going to do, but as you trip and fall, as you're going backwards, all kinds of different things can happen. You end up with this grip. This is how you ended up. You got to do something with it. And that's what you gain from basic Waza is you learn that repetition of when your hands are in this position, these are the angles, this is where it's got to go. This is how you can transition that from A to B to C to D or whatever, right? So, and then you just train the heck out of it with your Henka and just simulate different attacks over and over and over again. Try to kind of create different scenarios that it just makes it muscle memory for you. So
Okay, so where I wanted to build on the question, Shihan, is everybody on this call does traditional Japanese martial arts, right? We all do traditional Japanese martial arts, not a modern version of something. And I also wanted to jump on the correctional, law enforcement, military questioning. And the question that I have for you is, you just quite frankly don't hear about a lot of people pushing correctional officers, border patrol, military into like these modern, like, okay, go do MMA and then come in here. Like they're always being pushed into a traditional Japanese system, karate, jujitsu, judo. Why do you think that is? What's your opinion on that? Why do you think they're not pushing? If MMA and these more modern systems are so popular and those people are seen as such badasses, why is everybody being in the real world being pushed towards traditional Japanese martial arts?
Well, I guess the first easy, and I say this in jest, but like if you're a police officer and you're or a correctional officer, I get it. If you end up in a situation when you're on your back, you're gonna have all kinds of extra skills that you can protect yourself in there. That's that far surpasses what I teach or what my knowledge is. This is like before that. So when I'm like, how can I maintain control or get control of somebody before I get to that spot? And I would even say, like, in my experience with law enforcement, I know guys that had done boxing and karate and stuff like that. That's also really hard, especially in corrections. Police have a little bit more leeway when it comes to strikes and corrections. At least when I was there was no punching, there was no kicking, there's no knees, there's no elbows. It was all pain compliance, even though we didn't call it pain compliance because that was even you weren't allowed to say that even it was just like control techniques, but it's all wrist pain compliance type of techniques. And it's about being able to control versus injure is what it really boils down to. And for me, or what I saw was basically there was as a when you're standing in front of an inmate or a police officer standing in front of an aggressive person, we're standing together. I got my hands up the way that we train in our traditional classes. Your hands are up in front of you. You're saying, hey, I don't want to fight. You're trying to calm. You're trying to de-escalate everything else. When the attack comes, what are you going to do before you get down? And I think that's one of the things that if you're in an MMA class, you'll learn all kinds of stuff. If you're in a BJJ class, they'll tend to just start with the ground stuff, without getting to the joke of, if I got an aggressive inmate, I'm not going to sit down with one hand back and put my hand up. Like that's not an option, right? All joking aside, but I do have to stand up and I have to protect myself with my hands in front of me, right? So I'm coming from that position of de-escalation with my hands up in front of me. And if I get attacked, now I need something that works right then and there. I don't want to kind of transition to the ground unless I have to. And if we go to the ground, it's going to be with me on top of you. It's because I did a sweep, it's because I did a throw, it's because I did something where I end up on top, and I'm going immediately for some kind of a control. So, and I think probably the other part of it too, from BJJ perspective is the sporting aspect of it, right? Which doesn't really translate well for police. You're not in police corrections. You're not out there for points, right? You're out there to finish right away. And some of those techniques, that's a lot of the stuff that we teach, you can't do. It's banned in jiu-jitsu. BJJ, you can't do a lot of the small wrist techniques and small control techniques because there's potential for injury. Well, too bad, so sad.
It's one thing I want to add to that, Sensei Dolph, is that in terms of that MMA, we all know how well an MMA fighter would do on the street, but I always think about the mindset because even when I go to my jiu-jitsu comp classes, we'll do Shark Tank, which is physically brutal, but it's till the first point is scored. And so if you get a sweep on someone, you just reset. And so it's never going into deep water. Now, not that it doesn't or can't, but the mindset is get your advantage. That could be the whole match. And then hold position. And it sounds like you're describing Shihan Archambault something totally different, which is this has to end in 12 seconds.
Yeah.
My around the horn question, and then we'll get to our intros, but Shihan will end on you. And I'll start with you, Hanshi Legacy. You know, he was talking about Sensei, his first Sensei, and then Sensei LaMonica having this corrections experience. And do you think it makes for a better teacher if they've had real world fight experience? Hanshi Legacy, do you think it's necessary or do you think it helps?
I think it helps. Leo Laux, for instance, is probably that guy punched somebody and ruptured their spleen. It doesn't take long to do that. It takes like a quarter of a second. You know, so if for instance, if you're caught, you can't always be with your partner. Say you're caught by yourself and there's more than one person. What do you do in those cases? Before you know, even when you hit the ground, what are you going to do then? That's my question. So, yeah, you all the experience you can get is better for you if you're going to be a fighter.
Right.
That's all I can say on that. Right.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dolph, what do you think about real world fight experience, street or otherwise?
Well, I think, especially today, I think maybe like there was a gap time in there where a lot of dojos came around where the dojos are just kind of cosplay, right? So the instructors never actually, they don't even fight in their own dojo, let alone having ever like had an altercation with another human being. And so then the reality that they live in is the rule set of their dojo and how things happen inside of the dojo. So I think for me, the primary benefit of having a few dust-ups is that you can stand there and say, look, we're training this, but this is against a compliant partner. But when you find this situation, that person's not going to care. Right. So that's where I take it, right? That in the dojo is one thing. If you have an instructor who's had a few dust-ups, let's say, they're going to be able to just drop a couple more pearls of wisdom into your brain box than you're going to get from somebody who is in a comic book dojo.
I appreciate that. I mean, as the guy with the least number of street dust-ups on this call, the one thing that you mentioned early, Sensei Archambault, is just the relaxed confidence. Like around the time I started to be able to fight is when people stopped trying to fight me. And I believe there's a direct correlation there. It's like, wait, where did all these guys who wanted to fight me go? But I just walked differently and, you know, got out of a lot of really bad situations with a very simple presence. But where do you go with this? You know, does it make a difference to have that real world experience? And if it does, is it a necessity? And is a student getting less if they don't have it?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's no substitute for experience. You know, whether it's like your, you know, experience and let's call them dust ups or experience, like my experience came from using it through my work, right? I mean, I would hesitate to say an instructor that, you know, was out getting in fights all the time as an instructor that, you know, I would want to trust my training with. There's probably character issues there if he's out getting in fights all the time. But I think that's where the value of, like from my karate days, that was the value in going into tournaments. That you get your experience there. I'm fighting against other people. I'm fighting against my students. I'm not fighting against guys that I'm used to being around all the time. You go out and you go to tournaments and you're going against people that are higher skilled than you, that you don't know their timing, you don't know their special moves, you don't know their secrets, you don't have them timed up in any way, shape, or form. That, like, those are the things that you can get for experience. And so, like, for you know, and you could probably speak to this better than anybody, Hanshi Legacy, you know, the experience that you get in those tournaments, being able to go and, you know, have all these, you know, they're not fights, it's tournament sparring, but you know, the more you do that and you get out applying your skill against other people that aren't familiar to you, that's the stuff you bring back that makes you more experienced fighter, for sure, in my opinion.
Do you want to add to that, Hanshi? Because I did see you nodding when he was talking about the tournaments.
He's absolutely right. Any type of experience that you can gain. And, you know, if you know your own critical distance, like if you could do a hard punch, you can still throw your hardest punch. You just have to stand back just a bit further. So it's good practicing in certain situations and just firing it from the hips. You know, yeah, and the thing that you touched on that I really believed in was when this happens, most people don't think about this, but you have to just empty your mind, right? Because the problem was people start thinking and then their training can't shine through. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you're only as good as you are at that time. So what you better have done is train really hard. And now that it's time to actually happen, you let your body and mind do it. You just take yourself out of the equation. And when the guy moves, then you're not expecting something. You're just going to react to what's happening. That's absolutely the best way to fight.
Yeah. No, I would agree for sure.
Hanshi, I don't want to overshadow, but I do want to build on your thought, which is when I first started grappling, I'd be like, I'm going to do this, 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 and this to get their arm. But as I got a little better, what would happen is I'd find their arm because of a mistake they made, and my mind would start thinking more because I couldn't believe it was just there. And it's something you were talking about earlier, Sensei Archambault, where if you get that thing in a chaotic moment, but a lot of my early chaotic moments were, I can't believe I got this already. What do I do? What do I do? Yeah. And so it's ironic that even in a successful exchange, the mind can kick in and overshadow. It's not always the pressure of losing. Sometimes it's, how did I get here so quick? And then I've lost many moments that way by not knowing what to do because it was given to me instead of me having to earn it the way I thought I would.
Well, that's the cool thing about striking, Shawn. When you have that feeling, the fight's usually over.
Right. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching here live on our Zoom, there's a button that Sensei Dolph is going to light up for you. That's our question button in the chat. We ask that you shoot us your questions. We want you to be a part of this living history for Sensei Archambault or for any of us in and around the topic we're discussing. And if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on a podcast, hit that subscribe, hit that like button, share with your friends. We're really happy you're here. And I always get to introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin and Hanshi Gary Legacy. Nicolas Suino, Sensei, he's in Japan right now. Is that right? And so we're missing him tonight, but he's on the mats as always. And I just want to say, you know, Sensei Dolphin and I were talking about this the other day, and you two can talk about the camp a bit more, but they're talking about 50 years of the Legacy Shorin-ryu Karate Camp. And Hanshi Legacy's told the story on his first day of leaving and then going back the next night. And we just talked about how if he doesn't go back, that 50-year camp, that 50+ year club, these friendships, these relationships, they don't exist. And so I just want to say, you know, thanks for going back night 2, Hanshi Legacy. And thanks for steering me to my sensei when I left Western, because these little moments, if they don't unfold the way they did, we lead a literal different life. And I'm just grateful for the one with you as my teachers and co-hosts.
Thanks, Shawn.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm super excited to be here tonight. So Shihan began his martial arts journey at the age of 15 and now he's not a quitter. He has 40 years of training experience. So he's 10 years past Sensei Legacy's mark of, if you don't know this, Shihan, Hanshi Legacy says that if you don't make it 30 years, you're a quitter in martial arts. So you're 10 years past the mark. Good for you. In the 1990s, early in his career, he was a correctional officer. He was introduced to Hakko, Denshin, Ryu JuJutsu after he witnessed his effectiveness in law enforcement setting, which you just talked about. We've had some other guests on here, and they're all amazing. So Shawn DeJong, Scott Taylor, we've had these people on. Shihan's just one of the fold of Soke LaMonica, who's produced these amazing martial artists, and Shihan is also a student of Soke LaMonica. He's dedicated himself to Soke's teachings and passing them on to others. And today, if you want to find him, he continues to train and instruct alongside Kaiden-Shihan Shawn DeJong, and that's at the Goderich Martial Arts Center. And if you've not ever been there before, if you want to see what their dojo looks like, just watch The Matrix, or better, just drive to Goderich and go train with them. Their dojo is beautiful. It's so nice. I was at to give a couple comments. For me, our paths cross often. Shihan and I's paths, many, many times over the last decade, we find ourselves standing in the same place in time, doing similar things. But I want to throw a shout out to James Freeze, who's the one he introduced us to you. And that was the time when Hachi Legacy and I were teaching, and you and Shihan DeJong were teaching. And the four of us just kind of hit it off. We were off in little corners talking about martial arts for the whole time.
I remember.
Yeah. So in addition to Warrior Weekend, though, Suino Sensei and I went to your Tekai recently. We've done lots of Warrior Weekends together. And there's been lots of, they do a really nice job. Shihan Archibald and Shihan DeJong do a great job of bringing lots of high-level instructors to their dojo, and we get together just once a year, usually in November, and these high-level instructors just each take a 45-minute to hour session, and we share techniques with each other, and we all get this cool flavor of each other's martial arts, which is, and then we have lots of food and chat and go out for dinner, and yeah. If you don't know Hakko, Denshin, Ryu, these guys know how to bring the pain. So when we're talking about this stuff and he's like the angles and I'm like, I've had his hands on me. They know how to bring the pain, but they also know how to eat their own cooking. They know how to take the pain too. These guys, you watch him and DeJong, Shihan demonstrating stuff and these two huge humans doing this stuff to each other. And you're just like, my little limbs would snap off of my body if they did it at the same pace to me.
It's getting harder and harder. As I get older, I gotta admit.
If you can't tell, he's really fun to be around. He's a really fun guy to be around. He has exceptionally good technique. He's an exceptional instructor. He's very charismatic and funny and has great technique and can build it into people because I've been on the floor. He's taught me stuff. I'm always, whenever I see Shihan Archambald, I'm always happy to see him. Like I walk in, I'm like, yeah, he's here. I always feel good. I'm always happy to be sharing the floor with him. And I'm super proud to have him here tonight on Punch Kick Choke Chat.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's awesome. Well,
Thanks, Sensei Dolph. Sensei Archambault, I'm smiling at that intro. That was a good one.
That was a good one.
I would like to ask you what we ask all our guests out of the intro gate, which is, what was it like for you growing up, and what brought you into that first dojo at age 15?
So really, it was just friends. I joined up. My parents signed me up for Shotokan karate class with a bunch of friends. We all decided there was a new karate club in town. Sensei Steve Lonsdale started it, and we were like 15. And he was like, we thought that he was the most undefeatable martial artist in the world. He was just like, we revered him. And so we would practice on our own. Like we were just so into it. It's when I started to learn about Japanese culture. He really instilled a lot of that stuff. So we're doing a lot of reading about all that type of stuff and everything. We really immersed ourselves in it. And so I spent a few years through high school training with a few friends. My friends kind of dropped out, but I stuck with it. And then when I went away to college, I tried to come back. They had moved locations. I tried to come back in the summer. It was pretty hard to come back and kind of feel like you were back in the groove or whatever. So I think I did like a few classes in the first year, and I never came back my second summer. And then I don't even know what happened. When I finished college and I came back, it was like maybe a year and a half later, I started to work at the youth center. And lo and behold, my karate instructor is now a jiu-jitsu instructor. He started training in Hakko JuJutsu, and I think he was actually also training through Danny Krupa. He had also got a black belt in a different style of martial art, or a different style of jiu-jitsu, but he started Hakko JuJutsu, had been to Japan, got his black belt, and so he had started this journey with, back then it was Hakko JuJutsu. So I started taking classes with him, fell in love with it, like I said, because I got to use it at work, I got to see how practical it was. Went down to Ohio to meet Soke LaMonica, and if you've ever met him, it's like you only have to meet him once to say, I want to do whatever that guy is doing, that's what I'm doing. So that's just what we did. And eventually Steve, Sensei Lonsdale moved on. He moved down to the States. And we were left, myself and a few other senior students were left holding the bag on this club. So we just kind of kept it going and kept teaching it. And, as a brown belt, became an instructor and started to teach. And when I was in corrections, I was a self-defense instructor, so I also had like some experience teaching that way. So I was able to use that through the dojo as well to kind of help my develop my teaching style. And then it was just, here I am 30 years later. It was all those trips down to Ohio, just continuing to go down, come back 6 months later, have Soke LaMonica tell you everything that you were doing. You did it all wrong and you had to go back again. And it was the best of times. And we were young. And at that time, it didn't matter. Like, you could go down, the drive didn't matter. You'd get up early, you'd stay out late and have a good time with everybody down there, but then you were still up early. We partied hard and we played hard. And yeah, and here I am.
So let's go back to Sensei LaMonica. His name's come up a bunch, and you're
Yeah.
talking about how, immediately impressive he was. So as a young person who did have some martial arts experience, but hadn't known they were going to do this for the rest of their life, you weren't there yet. You talked about that in the opening. What was it about him? What can you tell us about his style, about what it felt like when he touches you? What can you tell us about what you saw where you went, oh, this is different?
Well, so the first thing, actually, even before you even before I even met him, was his dojo. Going down there, it was every time I'd ever trained anywhere, it was just in a gym. It was in a gym or in the basement of a public building, and you're always having to take the mats out and set them back up again. My first time actually being in a proper dojo, had a shinden, had Japanese scrolls on the wall. It was beautiful. So as soon as you walk in, you're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Soke LaMonica was a big man, very, very tall, very imposing figure, but very, very kind, very generous with his time, a very, very good teacher, very patient teacher. And so right away, it was like the first time he grabs you to demonstrate a technique. And I probably anybody that's ever trained with him, when you were new, he would kind of use you to demonstrate every once in a while, just so you could kind of, feel the lightning, as we used to call it. And so you get lit up and you go, oh, this is what it's about. Oh my gosh, like that's unbelievable.
So I love this, and actually, sorry to have almost interrupted, but I want to go around the horn on this idea. I'll start with you, Sensei Dolph. When somebody's new, how important is it, either for you being new or for them as a new student, to feel the potential of this, right? Like, how much hands-on should they experience from a high-level person to know the difference between their buddy who hits a heavy bag and you as an instructor? What's the balance of that, where you could be too rough, but where you kind of do want them to know there's a little bit of magic in here?
I think it's the person from the instructor. I think it's always good and always appropriate. So I think when new students come in and I'm working with them, I think it's always good and always appropriate. I worry more about like the green belt that they go partner up with than I do about the instructor doing the stuff personally.
Yeah.
That's just me. That's why I have certain rules about who can fight with who in the dojo when they first start. When I say fight, I mean unsupervised, right? Like just in chaotic, where you set a timer and you're just going to fight. I don't like the white and yellow belts to be fighting each other. My preference is that they're fighting with brown and black belts, and then, as Shihan said, they can ride the lightning, and it's just like that. It's basically like a strike of lightning. So that's where I take it.
I love that. Hanshi, you've got these incredible heavy hands. How important is it for a student to feel that early on, or is it not important? And how important as a student is it to feel, what I'm calling the magic of a martial art that's real, but really is magic?
That's sort of a complicated question, really. I mean, the person comes in and to a dojo, what they should do is look at the students, and in that way they get some type of realization of what the senseis can do, because you're not going to be the sensei, you're going to be a student. So I would look at that first. Usually And also you can tell if your senses are all working and you walk into a room, you can tell. It's like an animal world in there, really. When people first come in, you can tell. When I first saw Benny Allen, for instance, it went a little bit sideways for me because I opened my big mouth, but no more than 5 minutes later, I knew who the boss was and where I was going to line up. Because the room is controlled by him. A lot of times the students already know him, so it's controlled by his aura, because they realize now that they're in the sensei's dojo. It's a different place. Somebody may come stumbling in, shooting their mouth off and making noise. Well, that's not what most people are. Most people will come in looking for that person, and all their senses will tell them who he or she are.
Let me do one more quick thought on this. I'll keep with you, Hanshi, because I like what you just said. At what point does a student have to say, I've actually never felt anything real here. Maybe I should go somewhere else? Because the student walking in is looking to learn and will take the ride maybe too far.
I'm gonna say something here to them, but to start with, about 85 to 90% of the schools are not real karate schools. They're there to do other things. So, and people who walk in know even less than them. So if they see any type of thing in there, it'll be impressive. Like you see those guys on Facebook and stuff, they put their hands up, they're 2 rooms away, and the guy falls on his back. Like, they find that impressive, right? You see somebody punching with a terrible punch, they think that's impressive because they've never seen it before. I mean, I've seen people put ads out. I say to Randy, what the hell are these people doing? Like, I wouldn't put that out as an ad just because of the contents of it. So the people who comes in really innocent and leave ripped off most of the time. Sorry.
No, that's why I asked. Sensei Dolph, what do you think? At what point should a student go, oh crap, I haven't actually experienced the magic and maybe there is none? How do they know?
I don't know. The real students do want to know. Like the other ones, I guess that's the cosplay people, right? Like they're just, I was just talking to Hanshi Bauern about this morning. I said, in the last 5 years, I've made this discovery about martial artists that I can put them into 3 categories, right? There are martial artists who just like being martial artists. They like putting their uniform on, tying their belt on, going to the dojo and being there. They don't really care so much about the training. They just want to be martial artists. And then there are martial artists who love to train. They love to do the techniques. They like to sweat. And they don't really care about the martial arts belt and the bowing and that stuff. They just care. They want to do the training. And then there's the people like us that we want to do the traditions. We want to wear the belt. We want to bow on the floor. We want to train super hard. Most of the students are not like that. Most of the people who come into dojos fall into one of the other 2 categories, in my opinion, and in my experience. But to answer your question specifically, if you're in a dojo, and it's a jiu-jitsu dojo and you're never feeling any pain or discomfort, and you come to the dojo and there's no level of anxiety when you walk in, you're just like, you just come in there. There's no anxiety. You know what's going to happen. You should probably get the hell out of there. Like every time you go to the dojo, there should be some low level anxiety inside of you about what in the hell is going to happen today? Can I actually do it? How much is it going to hurt? That's just my opinion. So, and if you're not in that dojo and you're having fun and you got lots of money, then stay where you are. But just don't get in any fights. Just don't get in any fights and you leave that place.
I'm laughing, Sensei Dolph. Sorry, Sensei Archambault.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that because I think for us anyways, I know for me and probably for everybody here and most of the people that I trained with, like I know Shihan DeJong was the same way. that you can always tell who those students were. And as an instructor, it's not my concern. I like if you want to leave because you're not getting anything, that means you're the student that didn't put your hand up to volunteer, right? Every time I went down to Ohio, Soke LaMonica would say, need an uke. And we'd all race. Like you're racing to be the first one there, or like getting your hand up first, we would call you up. You wanted him to demonstrate, to use you to demonstrate so that you could feel it. And so if I'm teaching in a dojo and I ask for a student to come up to demonstrate a technique and you never volunteer, I'm not, it doesn't matter to me then if you're going to leave because you've never felt it, it's because you never volunteered or put yourself in a spot where you're going to get what you think you need out of this. And that's not up to me. Like, I'm here to teach. I'm not here to tune anybody in. If you want to come up and feel a technique, volunteer to be an uke when I'm demonstrating a technique. But, it's like, this is something that you get out of it, what you put into it. And if you're not putting that effort into it, of course, you're not going to feel anything.
I love that. And the reason I was laughing so much at what Sensei Dolph said is, Sensei, when I came down for fight night 4 weeks ago, we fought for 32 years and I still had butterflies. We fought the cleanest 2-minute round maybe we've ever fought. And I still was like, because I don't know how it's going to go, even with the person I trust with my fighting most in this world. And I just want to say, like, I would not want that feeling to go away, because if I know how it's going to go, I'm no longer training chaos.
Shawn, when we talk about this, though, as we're talking about it, it's this conversation is going full circle, right? Because when you go out some other place that's not in the dojo, how important is it this and that? Like, it is important. Like when you said before, how important is it for your instructor to have experienced this stuff? It is important, because then they're going to bring the chaos into the dojo for you. They're going to put you in those uncomfortable situations, because if you think you're going to get at a red light and somebody's going to jump out of their car and start coming towards you, and you're going to jump out with no training or shitty training, and you're going to be relaxed, you're going to be shitting your pants when that happens. So you better go to a dojo where you shit your pants a little bit when you walk in, because it'll be a little easier to clean it when you get out of the dojo.
Well, the other thing you said, Sensei Archambault, I mean, in our club, we're taught, like, when it's time to fight, you find the highest rank you can and you hope you're the first one there. Yeah. And at another club that I train at, initially it was discouraged to ask the higher ranks. And it blew my mind. And it's fine. It's just a different club's ethos. But I was like, oh, but I want to go get my ass handed to me over and over again until it's handed to me a little less. Yeah. And
that's who you're going to learn from. Like, training with somebody that knows as much as you do, you're not going to learn anything from them. You'll practice, and there's definitely room for that. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's room for you to just kind of practice with someone that's at your level, and you can kind of just go back and forth and kind of build yourself up. But the real learning comes from pushing yourself to be with people, opening yourself up to learning from somebody that knows more than you, not even necessarily an instructor. Like, if you're a yellow belt, it's a green belt, or it's an orange belt, it's a brown belt. Like, get a hold of somebody that knows more than you, and maybe they can tell you something. They can put it to you in a way that that clicks. Because I know that when I teach, I kind of have my little speeches and my little metaphors in the way that I teach. But maybe somebody else comes up with a different way of saying that thing that finally makes the light bulb happen for you, right? And you're not going to get that just being with people that are at your level. You always have to push yourself. That's why we do martial arts. It's about pushing yourself, right?
I love that. It's the only thing we're trying to do here. Is this too distracting in the back? I was just about to jump into our 10 questions.
I think you can jump into the 10 questions, because when you're talking, we can't hear it. It's only when you're not talking that we can hear them.
Okay, great. So, Sensei Archambault, we're going to the 10 questions a little earlier than usual because I do have to jump off. And I begged my co-host, I said, can I please ask them? It's my identity. And they said, fine, we'll let you ask them a little earlier. So we're interrupting the flow a little, but I wanted to jump in with you. So, Sensei Dolphin's got the phone out, not because he's texting, but because he's setting the timer.
Yeah.
You have 10 minutes. Now, it's not a challenge. 2 minutes isn't a win, but you only have 10 minutes. So if you want to elaborate on a question beyond 10 minutes, that's how much time you have. So we ask that guests answer as impulsively as they can, but feel free to elaborate on your answer as you wish.
All right. What happens if I cut it short and you've got like minutes left? Is there a prize?
Oh, then we'll probably ping out on some of the things you mentioned and expand
right.
on your topics for you, or just move on to the next part of your journey.
All right.
We've had people finish in 5 minutes, and that's great. We've had people hit like 9:40. That's great.
All right.
What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
I would say probably my favorite thing, my favorite technique to do is what we call Tekigami Kotegaeshi. I find it to be a very versatile technique. As we learn it through the different Dan grades, there's lots of I call them cheats. As you get up there, there's little things that you can add to it to make it more effective. But it's one of the first techniques that you learn, and it's one of the most effective techniques that you learn, especially as you go through the Dan grades and learn how to kind of make it a little bit more effective. So,
who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
Soke LaMonica. So, like hands down. Yeah.
Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Of all time, like, well, obviously to me it's Soke LaMonica. Of all time, that's a, I in my life, I look back at, I remember being a kid and watching the Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, when movies became about martial arts and you can watch these guys, the karate guys fight and do all their stuff, making it mainstream, martial arts more mainstream. I think that was a big moment in time because it used to be just something that, was, the clubs were kind of wherever, but nobody really knew about it. Having it on TV and people getting to see it, even though it was, obviously very, made very cinematic, but I would say those two for sure were probably responsible for making martial arts accessible to everybody.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your training?
Avoiding having Sean grab me as much as possible. The next 5 years, that's a good question. I gotta put my thinking hat on for that one. In the next 5 years, I think Sean kind of alluded at his call, or he talked a little bit about, since Soke LaMonica's passing, our federation's been in a bit of flux, and so I think trying to sort out kind of how we're going to continue his legacy and kind of making the choices that we're making and the things that we're trying to do to kind of ensure that we can continue to teach and pass on what he passed on to us, I think is the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. There's still lots of stuff that's up in the air. There's lots of things we don't know. We're still kind of talking through a lot of things. But I'm really excited to kind of work that out and come to some kind of a path that we as a federation and organization can figure out how we're going to do this and keep this going beyond us. Oh, you're muted.
We had some trucks going by, and it was good music too. I just didn't think it was right for the show. Plus, if we use music that's not licensed, we might get flagged on YouTube.
Right?
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Oh gosh, I'd like to hear him tap is what I'd like, but I don't think I don't know. Probably I would, if there's one thing that God could say to me, he'd say, Soke LaMonica is that way.
I love that. Pardon me. Here we go. Do you have a favorite film and television martial artist, even if they're not a great martial artist in real life?
I've kind of fallen away from watching those types of movies, if I'm being honest. When I was a kid, I did, but they're just so not realistic anymore. Oh, I'm even trying to think of names anymore of people that. Am I allowed to pass?
You can pass, and if you end up having time after you've answered your own question, we'll use that time to come back
Yeah,
to your
sure.
past
Yeah, 'cause
question.
I'm at the point now because I don't watch a lot of like actual martial arts like movies that are like that. That's not really kind of my thing. I can't even come up with names, to be honest with you, let alone compare them.
Let's go back to real martial artists who are incredible. Do you have a martial artist, living or dead, in all of recorded history who you'd want to train with the most?
I would have loved to have had the opportunity to train with Ryo Okuyama, the Soke of Hakko JuJutsu. He was alive when I started, but he had passed away before we had an opportunity. I think it would have been an incredible opportunity. We did go to Japan in 2000, saw Honbu Dojo, but he had passed away before that, so we didn't get a chance to go in or anything. I think it would have been an amazing opportunity to train under Soke Okuyama.
If somebody didn't train martial arts, but they got the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, what benefit would they be getting?
The opportunity to do it for real, like doing it at my job was like the thing that made it's the thing that made it work for me the way that I can apply it. Being able to have that opportunity, going back to what we talked about, to the experience, like, you know, you don't want to be that guy that's going out and getting fights all the time. I'm not like, I don't go out and I don't seek seek those types of encounters. But in a lot of ways, at least from a martial artist perspective, that was a blessing for me to be able to learn this stuff. And then as part of my job, probably at least 2 or 3 times a month, get to try it in different ways. Sometimes hardly at all, but sometimes there was big incidents and big dust ups and things that you had to do, and you had to really, really, test your skills. Right. So I think there was that is the thing that really kind of kept me sharp as a martial artist, especially when I was younger.
Because of your past, we're going to give you 11 questions. If your arts that you've studied didn't exist, what art would you want to study the most?
It's okay to say, oh, you studied karate, but it's okay to say Shorin-ryu karate.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like my first love was karate through Sensei Lonsdale. Like I said, when we first met him when I was a kid, we just thought he was undefeatable as a human being. Like clearly there was another person on the planet that would be able to take him on. So, going back, other forms of karate for sure. That would have been to be able to build on that, the skills that you learn. I think, being a multifaceted martial artist, definitely you can steal from one and build on the other ones, and they all kind of feed off of each other. So, had I stayed in karate, I for sure could have seen myself kind of trying to branch out and trying different forms of karate for sure. Maybe even, what is it, Randy? What is it that you do? Something Ryu?
Hakutsuru.
I'm just kidding. I'm being a smart aleck.
Shihan, our last two questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement and what is your greatest regret?
Martial arts achievement. Shawn and I just did our Kaiden rank just this last fall. So not coming up a year this October. I was right before the Taikai. So it was that was I was Shihan for over 20 years. I got my Shihan in 2000. And so it was 20 plus years at that same rank. And the reason for that was I ended up I had were my kids were going to be born, and I was like, I will not have the money to pay for this test and this rank once I have my twins. So Soke, please. Well, we like back then you had to be recommended for training. So we got recommended by a gentleman that I trained with. We went down and we were able to get our Shihan rank. So went through all the training, did all that, and then sat there because I did not have like money for that type of training. It just wasn't in the cards for as long as I had kids. So fast forward almost 25 years later, and Sensei DeJong and I did that. So for sure, I would say that my biggest regret, I would say probably like there was some time off in there. I took some time off for a bunch of different reasons. I probably I wish I would have got back into it earlier. I took time away. I took probably a couple years off. When my kids got old enough that I thought I could get them into a kids class and start teaching kids classes, that's when I started to explore opening my own dojo again. And I happened to run into Shawn in town, and we were chatting, and he was gonna start his own dojo. He was my student before I had left, and so I was like, well, perfect. I'll help you. So now I didn't have to do it. He opened up a dojo, and I'm just there to kind of help instruct. And here we are, however many years later it is now. So, but those couple of years off, I recognize I did lose a bit. Like being away from it for that long, it really, not technique wise, getting older, my capacity to take this stuff really diminished. Especially having Shihan DeJong do it to you, you kind of losing 2 years of that tolerance that affected me a little bit. So
Well, I appreciate that. And most of our guests don't tend to have many regrets, but the ones that do, myself included, it's just the time we didn't spend training. There's not much more to
right.
it. Sensei Dolph, how's our time? Do we go back to
No, we went over by like 30 seconds, but you threw
Oh,
in the extra questions, so I'm blaming you, and I gave him all the time to answer his last two.
blame me as you will. And by the way, please blame me for the rest of this show being shorthanded because I do have to go. I have a meeting I have to speak at. But I do want to say, Shihan Archambault, this has been an absolute pleasure. And I believe we've met on the mats before, but I can't wait until we do it after this conversation. We can get more
Sure, yeah.
deeply into the things we didn't even get to. So thank you for your time. And senseis, thank you for covering the show while I chat.
See you, Shan. Have a good
Take care, Sean.
meeting. Enjoy
Thank you.
speaking. You're terrible at it.
Yeah, I hate it.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions in the bank here, and one of them you actually brought up kind of in your 10 questions, Shihan, so I wanted to crack into that.
Okay.
And maybe we can contrast here a little bit. Like we can talk about gradings. Where I want to go now is a little bit with gradings because you just had one.
Yeah.
And in Japanese arts, usually there's gradings. It's not like in BJJ where, and I'm not shitting on BJJ. I do it. I like it. But I always feel kind of weird when I get called to the front and they like put a thing of electric or duct tape or whatever that is, hockey tape on my belt. And then like, it just feels kind of weird. And mostly because my lived reality is different. But so can you maybe take us through what's your first grading look like in Hakko Denshin Ryu? What does it look like to get a Shodan in that system? And then when you're getting your Kaiden-Shihan, what's a grading like that look like as you go?
You kind of open up a can of worms here because John and I haven't we've been having discussions about this very thing. So it's like what we look for, what I look for as an instructor, you know, for your first test, like we have, like, we're basically, our syllabus, or we're divided into two basic things. Like you'll do your basic waza. So for your black belt, there's just 21 techniques. You learn those 21 techniques at a, you know, call it like 80 to 90% level that you're at Shodan. Then in those techniques, you'll learn 7 principles. You'll learn escaping, you learn striking, you learn, you know, a bunch of different wrist techniques, you learn sweeps, you learn throws, basically. So there's 7 principles that you learn in there. And so what we'll do is we'll say at your first test or your yellow belt test, or for the kids, we'll do stripes or whatever. It's like, you know, you don't have to know all the waza, but, you know, do the first chunk of them and then be able to demonstrate 2 or 3 of each one of the principles. So Hakadori is escaping, the principle of escaping. So can you demonstrate 3 different applications of escaping? So usually wrist grabs or maybe a front choke, just simple things. Just show us that you have an understanding of what it is that we're doing, the difference between your Henka and your basic waza. You've got a basic idea of the basic movements, and you kind of know how to apply each one of those. And then as you progress through your belts, the expectation is that there's a greater level of proficiency in the 21 techniques, the basic techniques, and then you expand your repertoire of Henka, your self-defense techniques. So, you know, you might start off doing 2 or 3, you know, escaping techniques, but you might end up doing like 15 or 20 techniques for your black belt level, depending on which ones you're doing and how well you do them. And so that's kind of the structure. As we get into probably, I would say, green belt and up, we start to kind of do a lot more pressure testing with them. We don't let them call out their own techniques. We'll call out techniques for them. We'll look for a specific technique and make them, you know, try to figure out what it is that we want. And they'll keep going over and over and trying different things until they get to the thing that we're looking for. You know, we'll do things like it's usually very controlled, but then sometimes what we'll do is we'll start the test off with hip throws and gas guys right at the very beginning. Now you're gassed from doing hip throws at the beginning of your test. Now go through the rest of your test exhausted. And obviously that's all, like, as you get closer to black belt, those are the kind of things that you start to do. And so when it comes to testing, I'm an old school guy. Like, if you ask me to test, that's a great way to never get tested. Like I look at it like this: you're being tested at every class. This isn't a union shop. Seniority doesn't get you anything. Because you've been here for 6 months. You're not entitled to an opportunity to test. You're not entitled to a test. You're not entitled to a belt. I'm Sensei DeJong is Sensei. We decide who gets what. We'll tell you when to test. So it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when students ask. I don't mind asking, like, if they're asking genuinely, like, when do you think I'd be ready for a test? Where do you think I'm at? But can I test next week, or can I test next month, or when can I test is like, you know, you'll test when I tell you can test. That's when you can test, right? And now I was just thinking I was going to do it next class, but now I'm not.
Pro tip: ask where you're weak and what you need to do to improve before you have to test.
Exactly, right? And so, and then after that, for the dawn grades, once you got to Shodan, which for most people in our style, like, if you put a reasonable amount of effort, you're training 2 or 3 times a week, you, like, most people of average athleticism, would take you about maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years, 4 to 5 years. Be a little bit faster if you're exceptional. But one of the things for me, when it comes to that level, that I really, I struggle with it personally, with our senior students, because I'm an instructor. I like to teach. But one of the things that I think is missing a lot from a lot of students, especially as they work their way up to black belt, is that they don't teach. And so you can replicate all the techniques that you want, until you start to teach it, and you can look at somebody else and go, I think, this is what I think is wrong with that technique. How can I explain it to them? That's when you start to develop an understanding. And I think there's a big difference between having an understanding of the techniques and being able to do the techniques. So for me, it's like, yeah, within 4 years, sure, you can do the techniques. Here you go, here's a belt. But you don't really understand them in 4 years. I'm a big believer in, swimming in your levels for a little while, marinating in that, spending some time there, spending some time just being happy where you're at, refining what you know, just doing that before you move on to the next thing. If your thought is about moving on to the next thing, you're missing the whole point of why are you in there in the first place. And in our style, once you get your black belt, you learn a completely different set of basic waza. So you learn second degree black belt principles. There's another set of techniques that you learn, cooperative with a partner, and now you have to demonstrate all of your black belt level self-defense, your Henka, and second degree black belt self-defense. So every test kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go through the Dan grades, because you're demonstrating your Shodan, your Nidan, Sandan, all the way through.
And so your last grading.
Yeah.
What like tell us, what was it?
So
where'd you go? What'd you do? How long was it? How did your wrist feel when you were done? How did your uke's wrist feel when you were done?
So here's a funny thing about this style too. So when you get Shihan and Kaiden, it's not it's like a camp. It's a week-long camp, basically. It's like you're already really, really good at all this stuff. So here's a pocket full of techniques. They're kind of demo techniques. They're like made to look fancy, and there's lots of hidden stuff in there. But you do this camp, and it basically teaches cheat codes. Here's a bunch of cheats that you can do to make these techniques even better. So now when you do a Shodan technique, it looks exactly the same, but it hurts way more, and nobody can tell why, is kind of the gist of it. So when we did our Kaiden training, it was myself and Sean and Sensei Spirko from Michigan. That was the Saturday before. I had an accident. I fell out of a barn, 8 feet out of a barn, and I think I dislocated my shoulder. Like I couldn't lift my arm. I couldn't move it. It was like the weight of my arm hanging off my shoulder was pain. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. We trained twice a day, like in morning and afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, test Friday afternoon. And your test is basically just a demonstration of a handful of the techniques that you learned. And throughout the whole time, Soke Garcia was there, and he's like, basically, you can do all the techniques. It's not like a formal test the way that you would do through your Dan grades, but it's like once you've demonstrated that you can do all the techniques, you have understanding of these kind of cheats that they give you, then you do your little formal demonstration, and that is basically your test. So that was for both Shihan and Kaiden. That's the way that works.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So I'm going to turn the tables to you now, Sensei Legacy. Maybe share with Shihan Archibald what our tests are like, what a yellow belt has to do,
Yeah,
what a green belt or a brown belt has to do, what our black belt grading test looks like, and then how you award higher Dan ranks, how you like to do it.
Basics from the day you step in the door. Everything is made up from basics. Like I can tell you the same thing that you just said, we'll expect this here in this year, but somebody somewhere wrote basics are an advanced mind of training, right? It's because everybody thinks it's something else, but it's really not. There are, for instance, there are no yellow belt katas, there are no green belt katas, there are no brown belt katas. They're all black belt katas. The belt that you wear tells us where you are in learning them. And then when you get a black belt, then you know these black belt katas, basically, right? So everybody has their own way of getting people to a black belt, but it's just your own way of doing things, I guess. For instance, I taught University of Western Ontario for 35 years, and not one time when you remember those, Randy, right? 30 to 60 new students would come in. I would teach the white belts. I gave all the other colored belts to my other black belts because I wanted to make sure they got a good start. If you don't teach the beginners good basics, the rest of their training and you training them is going to be hell.
Yep.
Right. I spend 6 to 8 months on the basics. And that's including 2 P9 katas, which are 22 moves. Right. I work on that very, very hard for a year. And then after that, it's just a matter of learning different katas because I can show you a kata that we practice for a 4th dan. It still has the same moves. There are only 10 basics. It still has the same moves as in the P9 katas.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a little more complicated, but it's like doing math. There's only 10 numbers. Yeah. If you know those really well, then you're in pretty good shape. You just put them in different orders, right? So
yeah.
And the final thing I'm going to say is last Christmas, I was grading this young lady. She's about 32, 34 years old. And we grade at Christmas in September. She came running to me and said, Sensei, I'm a bit nervous about the grading. What do you want me to train? What do you want me to practice for the upcoming? What did you guys say?
Basics.
Basics. So people think it's more, but it's not. It's better.
Yep.
Thanks, Sensei.
Absolutely.
Shihan Archibald, what I want to share with you is because you said you come together and you do this week-long camp, and I think that's pretty cool. And in Legacy Sharonru, people might not know this, but one of the things we do is all the Udentia bring all of their students together 4 times a year who are going into the grading. So it's not like me and my dojo saying, you're a yellow belt, you're a green belt, you're a purple belt, you're a brown belt. No, all the Udentia come together and we all have the opportunity to say, yeah, your club's not really up to the standard right now. You put 4 students in here and none of them are really where we'd like them to see. So, you got to come out, you got to do a couple katas and then you have to do them well. And then Sensei will ask you you got to know some history and philosophy of your martial arts to get asked some questions like that.
Yeah.
And then you got to do some basic fighting. And we do that through the 7 Qs. And so like you, it takes like between 5 and 8 years to get a Shodan in our system. But our black belt grading is pretty horrendous. I gotta be honest with you.
I was going to ask you if they were like a crucible.
It is. It's
that's
like
what I envision.
you have to. Then all the Udentia come together in a room, and we actually don't allow anybody who's under a brown belt to watch our black belt gradings. So parents are. And I got to say, I was the one who actually, since it instituted that rule at my black belt grading, because I hit this guy apparently a little bit hard, and his parents were in there, and they started swearing and screaming at me. And since he was like, you're going to be thrown out. And then after that, he's like, we're having nobody under a brown belt in these gradings anymore because they don't understand that we're actually trying to help each other, even though we're pounding on each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to do your 16 katas then, and then demonstrate a lot of application out of those katas, not just do them, like, but actually
Yeah.
use them. And then the fighting starts. I know, like for me, it was 22 fights in a row. I had to fight. And and then you're also being asked questions and you can't think, like, what's your postal code? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know what country I live in. Right. So,
Yeah.
so, um, and then for the higher ranks, I mean, I'm speaking for Sensei. It's like usually at our Christmas dinner, he makes you go out in front of 200 or 400 people and do a couple of things there in front of everybody. But it's like you said, that's like where you said you put your techniques together and then you have to do your thing in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But
Like a demo, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. We do
Yeah.
we do a big demo, but I guarantee if your demo's not so good, he's probably going to give you a hard pass on the
Yeah.
before the certificate shows up in your hands.
Well, it's funny you say that about your about the bringing everybody together, because I know that that was a thing. What we used to do when Soke LaMonica was alive, all of our black belts, like I'm a Shihan, I could test somebody a black belt, but we always made sure anybody that we tested to black belt got tested by Soke LaMonica. You've already got my seal of approval. My seal of approval doesn't matter. I'm trying to teach you to the level that Soke LaMonica wanted, and it's your test, it's your grading, but it's also my test. Did I do good? Because I could insulate myself from that and just kind of be on my own and just test people whoever I want and kind of do whatever. But for myself and for Sensei DeJong, it was like, no, we're like Soke LaMonica somewhere in here has to. So for us, it was all the black belt tests were done through Soke LaMonica. So now that's not really, it's something that we have to navigate now, is how do we check and balance ourselves? So going back to, the next 5 years, what we're going to be doing to kind of try to, figure out how we're going to navigate the post LaMonica landscape. That's one of those things, like how are we going to check and balance ourselves when it comes to our downgrades to make sure that we don't lose sight of, we don't have people that are just kind of testing people up and turning the art into a McDojo thing someplace because they can make money off of it.
I'm not too worried about Goderich Martial Arts and that happening.
I know we'll be fine, but just organizationally speaking, we want to make sure that everybody, we hold ourselves to a standard. I know that Shawn and I have each other, but I can see when you're by yourself, if you're an instructor, you got your own club, you're trying to build it up, you're trying to keep a student base. There is pressure. There's absolute pressure to test people. The people are paying money and they want different colors on their belt, and you want to pay the rent. So those are competing forces. We're lucky we don't have to worry about it. And if we did, I still wouldn't. We just wouldn't have a place to train, or we'd find a different place because that's just who I am. I'm not interested in, I would never give a rank away in that regard. But and I should say, we're talking about the higher ranks, like, sometimes with kids at lower ranks, giving a stripe or a rank is a good motivator to move people along and give them kind of encouragement. So that absolutely does happen. But by the time you get to brown belt and up, like, you've earned everything. Like, you've earned it before you test it. I already know you passed.
I love that.
You have to prove it to yourself that you can pass now, because I wouldn't have let you pass I wouldn't even test you if I didn't think you'd already passed. Now you're just proving it to yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And the one thing I think, some people think once you get past Shodan, the testing gets easier. Like they're like, oh, well, you didn't have to come out here and fight all these people. And I'm like, you actually don't have any idea what you're talking about. Like my test is every single day that I walk in the dojo. Like you said, I got to put students in front of Sensei Legacy.
Yeah.
And if the quality of my students is not good, the duration of my time in my rank is definitely going to be extending out farther and farther.
Yeah.
I also like what you said about I remember when I started when teaching as like 25 or something, and I just thought I'm gonna give this a go, but if I have to do the things that you were saying, like I gotta bring the standards down or whatever, I'm just gonna close it down and walk away and continue to train on my own.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do this. And I still feel that way about even though I have this nice dojo in Kitchener and it's a hungry mouth to feed. It's a hungry child that always wants
that's a
something,
great analogy.
usually cash. Well, that's Sensei Suino's analogy, but I don't know. I could do my martial arts happily in another location too, as long as
Yeah,
it's good. Like when I ask myself, like, do you want to do good martial arts with good students or do you want to have a nice dojo? The preference is for good martial arts with good students, and you could do that in lots of different places.
for
Uh,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, just because we're the time this show has flown by like so fast, and I'm
Oh my gosh,
not
yeah,
a
it did, eh?
not 100% sure why, but I do want to ask another. I want to go back to something we were talking about
Sure.
before, and if you don't know how we end the show, Shihan, I'll tell you. Like so, tonight it won't be as long, but what we do is we go around the horn and share some thoughts about what we learned from you and what we liked, and then you always are going to get the last word, and then I'm going to kill the feed just so you have it in your mind that that's what's coming.
Okay.
But we talked earlier about ukes, right? Like we were talking about ukes, and I wouldn't mind the three of us just riffing a little bit about number one, what makes a good uke? Like, what is a good uke? Or even like you could start with this, Shihan. You can. A lot of people might not know what an uke is if they're stumbling across this on YouTube and they're like, "What the hell are these guys talking about? What the hell is an uke? Is this a sandwich that they eat from Japan, or is it?" So, so maybe you could give us the definition of what an uke is, and then the three of us could just talk a little bit about what a good uke is to the instructor, and then the kind of the other thing I'd like to talk about is what does the uke get from it? Like how are they growing and how are they benefiting from it? Um,
Yeah.
so maybe you could start, Shihan, with just giving the general definition of what an uke is in traditional Japanese martial arts.
So uke is basically it's your training partner, but the difference between uke and tori is the person who is going to be defending themselves or applying the technique, and uke is a person that's on the receiving end of the technique. So it's always a person attacking, the person grabbing. And uke is engaging with tori, and tori is responding with whatever technique you're practicing. Is basically so like uke is your attacker.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Sensei Legacy on the first portion of this question. Sensei Legacy, what do you think makes a good uke? A good uke?
Someone who acts naturally when you're demonstrating that they've trained hard enough to, when I say step, get ready and throw me a punch, that they don't put their hand there because it's going to look stupid. And, over years, a good uke is somebody who trains with you years and years and years and knows the natural movements. They know and trust that you're not going to hurt them so that when they fire their punch, they fire it for real and they know you're going to respond for real. You're not going to hurt them to a certain point, I guess. But, a lot of times, sometimes, yeah, a lot of times, sometimes I look on I'm sorry, on Facebook there, and I say these guys doing self defenses, and they go, "You're doing all that stuff and all this other stuff when they're on the ground and everything. Nobody's going to be standing there letting you do that. It's just ridiculous." And I ask myself, nobody's going to go to that club. Like, it's got to look real. It's got to be real, except for you're not doing the end thing. You're not knocking the guy down or hurting him too much of an extent. So I would say it's somebody who's trained a long time and moves naturally and understands what we're doing.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Archibald, what do you think makes a good uke?
To me, a good uke is someone that well, first of all, understands what the attack is, what you're doing. Like, there's nothing worse than saying, we do all of our stuff in Japanese. So when you call out an attack in Japanese and your uke comes at you with something different, because now, like, I don't have the option to go, no, stop. Like that old Jim Carrey sketch. No, you have to attack this way.
You attacked me wrong.
You attacked me wrong. Like I now have to respond to what it is that you've given me, and now I have to make a different teaching point. Which is if I tell you to attack me in a certain way, you'll do it that way. And I remember Sensei LaMonica would bury you if you ever did that. If you weren't paying attention enough and he called out an attack and you did it wrong, he would bury you and you wouldn't make that mistake ever again. And negative reinforcement is a very powerful learning tool. So, to me, a good uke is someone that listens and knows, has a really good sense of feel, kind of what you were talking about, Hanshi, about kind of understanding the technique and knowing how to attack, at 70, 80, 90% speed, trusting that you're going to do the technique to them, and then they can break fall, they can relax through it, the whole idea behind being an uke is that you let Tori use your body as a vessel to kind of learn the technique, right? So, especially at a lower grade, when you're just learning, we can all sit here and, a yellow belt can resist a white belt's technique and vice versa. Like, a white belt can resist my technique. And that's fine. When I go to do a basic technique and you want to resist it, that's fine. We just had a guy do it. We had a class not that long ago and we had someone come in and they were resisting the techniques. Well, now we just have to do something different. I'm trying to teach you this one thing and you're resisting it. Understand that there's other things that I could be doing here. I'm teaching this one thing. You resisting this just means that now I would transition to something different, right? Which is like, now you're missing the point. So a good uke understands that, will let you do the technique to them. But when you get a good training partner, Shawn DeJong and I have been doing it for a lot of years. If you ever watch us do it, like we bury each other when we do it, but we can still get back up again. We still get back up again. We grab each other, maybe not as fast as we used to do 10 years ago, but we can still get up and grab each other again because you're doing this stuff at like probably 80% without causing injury. So it's a good uke is someone that can cooperate with you through your learning. If I had to put it in a sentence, that would be the bullet.
I love it. And for people watching, when we're talking about the uke, it's not necessarily the uke with the sensei. That of course is a good role to be in. Like you were talking about this earlier, like Soke LaMonica is going to do a technique, Conchi Legacy is going to do a technique. I know it's me or two or three other people that he's going to be calling up to. But every night you go to the dojo, you're going to be an uke for someone, right? Somebody's going to be the receiver of that technique. And for me, I say to the students, a little bit, be a good actor for them. Be a good actor. Don't start trying to block the techniques or resist the techniques or stand in some weird way that the person can't actually do the thing that we're trying to teach them to do. Put yourself in the situation to lose so that the other person can win. As you said, let yourself be a vessel for them to become better. So I want to also now, because like we're going to end up going over here by a couple of minutes because I want to finish this train of thought. We're only 2 minutes away from 10 o'clock. But what do you think? And this will be the last one. So I'm going to ask you, Sensei Legacy first, then I'm going to ask you, Sensei Archambault, and then we'll give our closing remarks, and then we'll end this show, which has been amazing. But what do you think the uke gets from being in their situation? Like, what is the benefit of being, so to speak? We call it the receiver, but you're the loser. You're dying. You're the one who's, you're.
Oh, Shawn has grabbed you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So what do you think, Sensei? What do you think the benefit of being the uke is?
A lot of benefits. It's firsthand everything. And, the purpose is to show the technique or the move, the purpose of it. You know what I mean? So he gets to understand that firsthand. You understand? Because, You, a lot of times you may learn it in a complicated situation, but it's really clear when you're doing a demo like that. Just a simple plain punch. You're just tapping it down and firing it back. You've really shown that it could be effective. And Yuke has to be the other part of that. If he doesn't throw a good, hard, fast punch, he's never really going to learn that this can defend against that, like even against that person's best punch. So he gets the front row seat on all of those things happening. Not only does he see it, but he feels it.
Love that.
He feels that aggression from the sensei, and can stand there with a calm mind and do what he has to do.
Thank you, Sensei. Sensei Archibald.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. It really is that. It's such a good learning experience, in particular when you're uke for your instructor, to be able to kind of really see it from that other angle, to understand what it's supposed to feel like. Watching something in the third person is, there's definitely learning to be had there. But every opportunity you get to learn it in the first person, and be on the receiving end of it, it's a different lens, and you definitely get a little bit more out of it, which is why we always volunteered to be uke for Soke. I learned ukeing for Sensei DeJong that I don't like to touch him. There's that learning that also happens. But I think, joking aside, it's a two-way street, right? You would never be an excel as a martial artist if you were only ever touring. You're only ever doing it. All you're doing is replicating now. And you might be very, very good at replicating it. But like I said, without being an uke and without teaching it, being able to teach it to someone else, you don't have the same understanding. So it really deepens your understanding of the techniques, being on the receiving end of it, for sure.
Love this line of conversation we've had. The only thing I'll add in is I've been lucky enough to be Sensei Legacy's uke for like tens of thousands of times. And I actually have been lucky enough to be his instructor's uke many, many times, like so many times. When Hachi Sandoval was here, he would call me up to do things. And one of the cool things that I would find is that when I would go out then with my partner to like drill the thing, it was easy for me to say, sometimes I couldn't do it because I couldn't see it. Like I was like twisted up, and then I would go out and I couldn't actually be the Torei. I could only be the uke. But for my Torei partner, I could say, that's not right. Doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel at all like I just experienced at all. Like you're not even in the money here, right? So for me, that's then and what Benson was talking about. You get to feel a little bit of the magic when you're up there. You get to feel it at a different level than when it's like your yellow belt or green belt buddy or friend doing it to you. So listen, time is real, as Sean Benson says all the time, Shihan, and this has been great. Like I've really enjoyed this. So we're gonna go around the horn, but before we do, there's one message that I want to put out there. One of our good friends, Wilfred Seratin, Sensei Wilfred Seratin, he's in the hospital right now, and there's a GoFundMe floating around for him. And if you could jump on that and help him and his cause in any way, we would appreciate it. If you go on the Facebook Punch Kick Choke Chat site, we'll post that GoFundMe there so that you can find that and help out if you can. We also don't like to ever end this show without saying thanks to the people who actually make it happen, because while we jump on here and we have the good conversation, there's always the people in the background who are making things happen. And so I want to say thanks to Robert Shlumsky, Andrei Sedishev, Justin Shea, Dan Holland, Christiana Landolt, Stavros Strulis, Drudy Giuliani, Emily Ruth Driscoll, and obviously Sensei Suino's not here in Benson, so I'm going to just take this chance to thank them as well. They do a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well as just coming on here. Sensei, what do you want to say about our time tonight with Shihan Archibald?
I think it was Monsieur Archambault. It was
Very good.
okay. Thank you. I liked. Um, he reflected the good qualities of his dojo. That's what I find. A lot of times people come in here and they can't do that, even though they may have it. He did, you know. You did, and I like some of the things that you said about that. It's a lot like our dojo. We don't give things away, but we're not brutal either.
Yeah.
But we also respect standards, and that you're here to change for karate. Karate is not here to change for you. So it's our job, it's our duty to make people be a higher self. So we are manservants. That's what the samurai name means, and that we have a certain duty to the student and to martial arts. It would be bad, wouldn't it, if everybody looked at a chart and martial arts was dumpy during our time? So we're not going to let that happen, right? Yeah. Okay.
No.
So thank you for coming on our show, and I appreciated your dojo from your words.
No, well, it's been an honor. I've got so much respect for Sensei Suino's not here either, for the three of you, what you guys are doing here. You know, having seen you guys instruct, been on the mat with you guys, you know, it's just an honor to be even considered to be included in this, the quality of people that you've had on. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of come here and shoot my mouth off about stuff. It's been great. Really
Well,
good.
you're going to have to do it again because I'm still going to give you my thoughts and then you're going to get the final word
Oh,
again.
I thought that was the final word.
No. I like when we were talking and you said, I'm going to sweep you. I'm going to be on top. You're not going to be able to drop down on your butt and put your hand out. And I like that. Even though I do that stuff for fun when I'm training. But
It's not a knock. I'm trying to make it, it's like a meme. It's like that
Hey,
funny making joke out of
listen,
it.
even in the BJJ world, people who pull guard get shit on. So don't worry about that. Um, um, I'm really happy that you didn't start in judo at the YMCA. Like, even though Sensei Suino's not here and he's going to hear me say that, like, most of our guests say that. It's so nice to hear somebody say, I started in karate, right? Like, I like that. Um, Kotegaeshi is your most effective move. I like that. I knew you were going to say Soke LaMonica was
For
the
sure.
most influential, of course. Um, all time, since the legacy said Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. I think that just says something, right? Like the inspiration those people provided for a lot of top level martial art just talks about it, shows how good they are. Um, next 5 years, avoiding the bringer of pain, Shawn DeJong, Sensei Shawn DeJong. Of course, that's a good one too. What we want God to say, Soke LaMonica's over there. You know, benefit being able to do it. Greatest achievement, your Shihan rank. Not a lot of the martial artists that we have on here say that, but I always respect it when people do because getting any rank in martial arts is extremely difficult.
Well, for sure.
And getting a high rank is like exponentially harder than most things you're ever going to do in your life. Like it's going to be harder than almost everything. So, a biggest regret taking some time off. I like the stuff we talked about with the testings. I also liked when you said seniors need to teach. We could do a whole episode on that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
because they do need to teach because they're never going to be as good as they could be if they don't teach and pass it along. Why would you want to have $1 billion in your bank account and not make anybody happy with it? Like, that's just craziness. So now, Shihan, the last word will go to you with whatever you want to say about your time on the show or about martial arts or whatever you want to say.
No, I'll just rehash what I said before. It's an honor to be with martial arts greats like yourselves, and just having a conversation. I was really looking forward to having a conversation with you guys. Like we don't see each other very often, and when we do, it's usually off in a corner and kind of conversation and passing. So it's been nice to just sit down and be able to have a nice long conversation and get into the weeds on some of this stuff. And I appreciate having conversations with other traditional martial artists, even different styles. But, you know, I think the traditional martial arts, I think is, you know, with MMA and not so much BJJ, but MMA is like has really kind of overtaken traditional martial arts, and people don't see traditional martial arts as valid. And I think it could be farther from the truth. You know, I will fully admit that I'm not going to be a UFC fighter. That's not within the scope of my skill set. That's a completely different animal. But I know that in my job, when I was working on the floor, I know that I could restrain an inmate and not get fired for what I did, which an MMA guy probably couldn't do. So with the skills that I have. So that, like, to me, that was kind of that was the whole perspective, you know, going back full circle. That was my whole driver for martial arts in the first place. And even though I don't work in corrections, like in the jails themselves anymore, you know, that's what hooked me, and that's why I'm still here. So,
well, it was great to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Everybody for being on the show.